Good afternoon, everyone. While we wait to begin, just a few housekeeping rules for the Zoom. Feel free to share your comments in the section and your reactions and reflections, everything in your chat box, and use the Q&A box for the questions during the panel, and I will bring them into discussion later when it's Q&A. And good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome today's webinar of bridging national climate goals with local actions towards a national action plan for sustainable buildings in Nigeria. I am Sangeeta Namaraj, the technical officer at Green Building Council. I will be moderating today's webinar, and thank you for joining again. So basically, the webinar marks a very key milestone in the NDC scorecard development project. The project is basically an approach to align the Nigeria's uh, building sector policies with its commitment under the Paris Agreement and to also to the broader climate goals of the country. The project is being spearheaded by GBCN in Nigeria, and this initiate also contributes to the global effort led by the World Green Building Council, and it's funded by CIFF. The action plan and its scorecards gives us is also the part of the NDC scorecard development project, and it gives us a very practical tool to connect to our nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement with the local building policies, projects, and investments, and henceforth. Um, to have this is the basic introduction of the project, but to help us set as a global frame for today's conversation, I would like to introduce Ms. Alice Bond, the Policy, Research and Engagement Officer of the World Green Building Council, to set up the stage for today's conversation in a global perspective so we can forward to that. Thank you for joining us, Alice, and over to you.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much for the warm welcome. Really great to be here today. Thank you so much for all the hard work you've been doing, Sangeeta, and to Danjuma as well for really leading the expertise in Nigeria. We've been super impressed with all of the outputs that you have produced. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview today to the overall project and kind of setting the frame in the global perspective of how we're using the work that you're doing in Nigeria, how we're working with other countries, and what we expect the outcomes to be in the lead up to COP30 and also beyond. But if you've got any questions, I'm so happy to take them, pop them in the chat, as Sangeeta said, or raise your hand afterwards as well. So, as a bit of a setup to the problem of the built environment, I have really seen with the built environment the big challenge of getting people excited and interested in reducing emissions, particularly for the built environment. I think it's a sector that is really overlooked because unlike other sectors like transport, where you can really see that visceral, there's pollution coming out of the cars. With buildings, it's a little bit more hidden. The emissions aren't so well connected to using buildings. So I really see on a day-to-day basis when we're talking with negotiators and change makers and leaders, we're really seeing there is not a huge understanding of what buildings can offer, both as a challenge but also as a solution as well. So a couple of stats on the screen here. So buildings are 40% of global energy related emissions and 50% of materials. So we're talking about huge numbers here. It's not just the icing on the cake. It really is a huge meaty section. But what's really exciting about working in the sector is that we do have solutions that are ready to go, that are ready to be rolled out. We're not waiting on some future technology to come in and be developed. We really have 40% of the solutions today, which are able to double energy intensity by 2030 to keep those COP28 aligned goals ready. So they're 1.5 aligned goals. But also we really see the NDCs, particularly in this year, in like a year they're being updated, as a really key time to invest time in looking at those NDCs, to attract investment, to bridge financial gaps, to scale climate action, as well as meeting the targets. So it's not really just about meeting the targets, but it's around the whole landscape around that as well. And we really see 2025 as a big opportunity. The next cycle of NDCs are being updated, and the original deadline was February this year, but it's been pushed back to the end of next month. And we're already hearing reports that countries will be submitting later than that as well. So ahead of COP 30 most likely, which is in November. But there is that delay because countries haven't submitted in time to the initial February deadline. So what it provides is a really solid opportunity for policy, for advocacy, to get buildings on the agenda of the text for those NDC updates. So it's a really exciting time. And I know Nigeria at the moment is currently looking at revising the text. So it's a really great time to be working in policy and advocacy. And what we've been doing specifically with the scorecard is the purpose of this tool is a few different areas. So it's firstly to see, what are the best practice sustainable built environment policy measures. And when we were doing the research in the initial consultation with Nigeria as well as other countries, we had a huge list of policies, over 200 policies, but what we really wanted to do here is create something that is usable, tangible. We don't want you to be going to a list of policies to policymakers, which is, hundreds long. It's not going to make sense. We really wanted this to be a focused, actionable tool that's usable and succinct, but also relevant globally. So we didn't just want it to be accessible to one region, but we really wanted to take the insights we've gathered from many different countries, many different regions, to make it something that's comparable, but also usable and functional. But the idea is it's also a talking point. So when you're completing the scorecard, it's then a voice and language you can use to talk and engage with different stakeholder groups. So that might be industry, government, other policymakers, other policy activists, and a whole range of different stakeholders. So it's really about having the language to use and the specific policy areas to take through as well. And we really want to kind of line the GBCs we're working up with, the green building councils, as those kind of voices and those experts in the field, because that's what they're doing day to day. And so to raise the profile of that on a global level is something we are super keen to do. But we did develop this with, a huge amount of different stakeholders. As I said, we really didn't want this to be country or even one region specific. So as well as Nigeria, we worked really closely with Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, and the Philippines. But we also had workshops in different regions to make sure we're bringing in different ideas, different thoughts, and also different collaborations as well. And we also took it to a global audience through a wider stakeholder engagement consultation as well. So through that whole process, we have worked with over 800 stakeholders. Most of those have been through in-person meetings, but also through our global consultation as well. So we're really keen to hear lots of different voices as we collaborated together at a global level. And so we launched the tool, which hopefully you've all maybe seen, or you certainly can have access to through the QR code on the screen. And the idea really is, as I'm sure you've heard in the previous workshops, is to really highlight what are those specific next steps, which are technical. Some of them are non-technical. They're around the enabling environment. What are those specific next steps? It's a gap analysis, so it really clearly shows where policies are implemented or embedded, where policies are in progress, and also where there's gaps. So there's actionable next steps as well. So that's the purpose and intention of the tool. But what we were really excited to do since launched in June, so since launched 2 months ago, we're super excited that beyond the 5 countries we've been working really closely with, we're now working with 40 different countries. So all of the countries on the screen in dark green have currently signed up and are using the tool. So what we're really excited to do now, as we're starting to get in more data from different countries, is to be compiling those insights, using those regional as well as global trends to really showcase what are those best practice examples, but also what are the key indicators per region of, you know, what are the priorities going forward as well. So we were super excited with the uptake of that, and also just gives us the ability to be able to share more insights with our audience as well. So the results of the scorecard, the intention is to really prioritize what are those built environment policy advocacy measures across the key themes that we've kind of landed on. And we are collating insights both from the scorecard, but also from the next step action plans that I believe there'll be more discussions on today, because that's where, you know, that's where the tangible outputs will be developed and created and impacted on as well. So we're really excited to start, you know, hearing those insights, compiling those and sharing insights as well. And this is a quote from our CEO, Christina. So it really just shows the importance of NDC. So she says, it's absolutely critical that the next batch of revised NDCs accelerate their transition and closes the gap to 1.5 degrees. This can be achieved by not overlooking the role of buildings and encouraging governments to send strong policy signals that unlock finance and enable the private sector to scale existing climate solutions. So I think she said, what she says really succinctly here is, you know, this is a tool which is helpful. It's a really, you know, it's a strong time to act this year before the next cycle of updates, but also it really needs to be outcome focused. It's not good enough if we're just kind of talking around the surface. We really want to see those actionable solutions come through as well. And our call to action to all of you here today from World GBC is, whilst the NDC scorecard and the next step action plans, you know, they have created really practical next steps, and the reports the team at GBC Nigeria have created a you know, really detailed, really thorough, provide simple next steps that we are really supportive of at World GBC. So we're super excited to see you know, whether it's possible to make any text changes within the next cycle of NDC updates in Nigeria. We're really hopeful that there'll be some positive outcomes there, and we will be we know there's lots of countries currently working, the GBCs are currently working with their governments in about 16 different countries specifically to try and enact those specific text changes within the NDC. And that's what we're really keen to observe over the next few weeks, as we know lots of texts are starting to be finalized as everyone is leaving it inevitably until the last minute to submit their NDC. So we're really hopeful we're going to have some really positive news stories there. And just my final slide is really just to flag that in the run up to COP30, we're doing lots of work to kind of bring together all of the analysis that we, you know, from those different countries, from 40 countries we've been working with, sharing insights, sharing good stories, sharing positive policies as well, because something that has really come out of this for me in particular is how many good news stories there are. And I think being able to share those good news stories across multiple countries is a really fortunate position to be in, and it inspires other countries to take action, shows other countries what's possible, and shows also flags highlight financing mechanisms as well. So we're starting to, you know, consolidate all of that over the next few months. But that's my final slide. I'm happy to take questions, or I don't know if we need to move on, Sangeeta, to the next section.
Thank you so much for that. I think you have stressed enough on the project itself and give us the global perspective and connecting Nigeria's journey to the global momentum as well. This is very encouraging to see. And I can't see any questions related to your presentation right now. If you have questions towards your presentation, we'll come back to that later so that we continue on launching our national action plan as of now. Thank you so much, Alice. So the next we move from the global perspective to the national stage. We, as per the project, we also came up with the national action plan for sustainable buildings in Nigeria. So I would like to invite Mr. Danjuma Waniko, the president of the Green Building Council Nigeria, to walk us through the action plan for sustainable buildings and the scorecard framework so that he can set the floor and get the action plan to an action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sangeeta. Let me share. Where's my screen? Where's my screen? Okay, there it is. Okay, I'll try not to take too much time. Alice has thank you so much, Alice, for covering most of the main points. Lisa laying the background so well. So I'll just cut to the action plan. And good afternoon, everyone. Very quickly, just an overview of where we're coming from. We started this project in August last year. This is just a timeline mapping of what we've done. We've had 4 national workshops between October last year and May this year. We did policy mapping, scoping, gap analysis, and prioritization. Simply just to examine, explore our national policy landscape vis-a-vis buildings within the context of decarbonization and resilience. We did this at both the national level and the subnational level. We also went out to the states, 14 or 15 of our subnational units, consulted broadly with stakeholders, and that culminated with our action plan, which we finished in May, just a few months ago. What I want to say here is that it's not a document that was born of a small group of experts working together in a back room somewhere. This was a collaborative process, consensus-driven, evidence-driven, and it was done step by step over several months. And so we believe that this is an accurate reflection, and it captures the views and perspectives of a very wide variety of stakeholders. We had over 100 stakeholders in our workshops, from the government, national and subnational. We had the private sector, academia, we had youth groups, we had civil society, professional associations, and we had finance. So it was an exhaustive process to bring us to where we are. Now, just a few insights from the process. What did we find? Not too surprising, a few challenges. We found that policy coverage is uneven. Carbon and energy, not too surprising, is relatively well covered. Not as well as we would want, but at least it's well reflected. Resilience also, though it is more focused on adaptation and not resilience broadly, but at least resilience receives some consideration. But some key areas like water, biodiversity, and health, not so well covered. Not too surprising also, implementation gaps. We have capacity challenges at the national and subnational level, the inconsistent uptake of policies, and siloed responsibilities. One of the challenges of managing emissions, managing decarbonization and resilience in the building sector is its cross-cutting nature. It touches on so many different, a diverse range of sectors. And so it can be a challenge to capture these all in a single place. The natural instinct is to situate some of these responsibilities like water, energy, waste under different thematic ministries or agencies, but that creates challenges with coordination and addressing the building impacts in a holistic and systemic manner. Now that's where we are, and where do we go from there? Well, that's discussion for another day. What else did we find? Fragmented treatment in our NDC and national policies, poor enforcement, not too surprising. Embodied carbon, very important, but not covered. And then the co-benefits of addressing certain impacts or leveraging the built environment to address impacts in other sectors or areas are not quite being realized or used. But on the flip side, we found in the course of our engagement that there is growing interest and momentum in quite a few. This is just a snapshot of subnational units, but the interest is from a lot more than this, and also at the private sector and other sectors. There's advancing interest in training, certification, and we have a strategic window with this NDC update. So this is another opportunity if this analysis is being done at the right time. Sangeeta, let me know how I'm doing when I'm running out of time, so I'll speed up. So moving on, so that is what we found, and that now led us to what did we need to do, or what do we need to do? So we came up with 8 strategic objectives. First of all, very obvious, is align policy and regulation. We need to mobilize finance. We need lots of money to do what we need to do. We're not getting nearly enough. And we need to build local capacity across the entire value chain, at the level of the policymakers, at the level of the regulators, at the level of the designers, and even at the level of the constructors, the masons, the carpenters, the iron benders, the bricklayers. We need to build capacity across the value chain if we want to drive this process forward. Also, we don't have data. We don't have MRV systems, so we can't track our progress. We don't have anything to benchmark against, and we don't have standards in place. So we need those. We need proofs of concept. We need demonstration projects. We need pilots to test and try out solutions. We can't just deploy solutions whole scale. Well, yes, we could, but what if it doesn't work? So we need pilots, we need proofs of concept, one, to test what works, and also to prove to ourselves and to skeptics that the solutions actually are applicable and work in our context. That's what pilots can do. They convince us, and they also convince our external partners who want to support us, who want to say, okay, is what is being proffered, is what is being offered or as a solution, is it actually fit for purpose? Will it actually deliver the promised solutions? So we need pilots, we need proofs of concept, we need to deepen collaboration, we need to address the issue of co-benefits. How can we leverage potential benefits from actions in different sectors and different areas to drive decarbonization and resilience in the built environment? And then at the subnational level, that is very important because, as I like to say, always in Nigeria, at least, subnationals are responsible for land use, urban planning, and building regulations. So if we don't get them on board on this process, then we might not go as far as we need to. Moving on, we also broke it down into who needs to act to translate this action plan into leadership. Right now, I'm talking about what the action plan contains. So we have 4 key actors. Government, of course, has to lead the charge through policy alignment, enforcement, coordination of green codes, development of climate resilient planning frameworks, and developing and scaling MRV systems. We also need industry to play a key role because the government cannot do it alone. Government can only set the high-level policy, establish the playing field, but we need the players to come on board. So industry has to mainstream green practices through things like certification, sustainability codes, demonstration projects, and then they need setting up effective MRV systems requires, it's not just the system. The government can set up the system, but they need data. They need data to feed into the system. And this data has to come from industry. They can't just pull it out of thin air. So industry needs to support the development of the MRV frameworks by providing the baseline information and the operational information that is needed. And then, of course, to build a market awareness. Finance also, obvious based on what we've said before. We need the finance industry to step up and develop products, incentives, ESG-aligned investments, green bonds, and impact data. And these need to be fit for purpose. We have a problem of blockage where there is funding available, but the funding cannot get to the people that need it, perhaps because the frameworks and the systems are not quite fit for purpose. So we need to, the finance sector needs to re-examine their frameworks, their lending policies, their standards, and see what can we do to unblock some of this funding and make sure it gets to where it needs to. Of course, that does not remove the responsibility of the developers themselves to step up and say, what do I need to do to qualify for this funding? And of course, lastly, civil society, academia, that's us. We need to continue driving awareness and advocacy. We need to support the building of, building of technical and professional capacity. We need to support the generation of evidence and data to inform policy and practice. And so what comes next? I'm wrapping up now, I promise. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been we mobilized our local research assistant network. They've been delivering the action plan to subnational units. The objective here is to build awareness and spark state-level adoption. Remember, I said the workshops we've been having have been largely at the national level. So we want to take what we've learned and push it down to the subnational level where we actually need the action to take place on buildings. So that's been going on, and we hope to wrap that up this week. Okay, we're running out of road this week, probably next week. Following that, next month, we'll be convening a series of regional workshops. This is kind of to build on the delivery of the action plan to the states. So we have about 3 anchor states across the countries, different zones. Right now, we're looking at the North Central, Southwest, and the Southeast, South-South axis. So we'll have regional workshops there where we're going to discuss and engage on the action plan. Like I said, the anchor states will be there, and we'll be bringing in states from neighboring states. So we'll have clusters of 4 to 6 states in the room where we explore how this action plan can be translated into state-level codes, building codes, urban planning frameworks, and so on. And then lastly, of course, this is a high-level plan. We need a detailed national decarbonization roadmap that sets out actual steps and sequences and roles. And this is what we are at the scoping stage now. And as we continue and as the work evolves, we'll let you know. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. If you want a copy of the action plan, the stakeholder summary, you can scan the QR code on the screen and download it. So thank you so much. Back to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for walking us through this framework and the action plan. I believe this will set us the stage for our panel discussion, as our theme is for our national commitment to local actions. So making this action plan more workable. So for this session, brings together very diverse voices to help us understand how this action plan recommendations can be translated to our national climate goals, as well as to the local building policies and projects in general. I would like to invite before inviting, I would like to just do a brief intro of all the panelists, not like an introduction, just their name and their designation, so that we can get going to the the primary conversation. I'd like to welcome Mr. Olamido Fabuji, a Senior Special Assistant to the President in Climate Technology and Operation. Ms. Anna Obidina, Chief Architect, Office of EGIS and Urban Development from Lagos State. Ms. Edima, Advisor, Energy Efficiency in Built Environment, GIZ. and Ms. Esther Ajayi. She's also a Special Assistant of Climate Change and Sustainability from Abia State. I would like to first of all thank all of you for joining today. This is a very diverse panel as we bring in a lot of stakeholders and subnational representatives. These experts want to reflect. I would like to start the panel by asking Mr. Olamido first to reflect on this question, like how do we make this action plan live reality in Nigeria's building sector? I want you to answer it in the perspective of both national and state and city level, even for private sectors, if you can. Thank you, Mr. Olamido.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Sangeeta. And yes, it's good to be here. I think this is a very, very timely intervention with the state of Nigeria's NDCs and our energy transition. More importantly is that our NDCs were actually validated yesterday, and we're firmly included buildings as a key sector to be decarbonized. Also recognizing that again 50% of extractive materials go into the built environment. The challenge has always been this is pretty much qualifies as a hard to abate sector. So there's a lot of coordination required to actually see about decarbonizing the built environment. And from the federal government side of things, what we have done is to establish a coordination mechanism to handle the cross-cutting nature of climate action. And this is why we have a National Council on Climate Change, which I am affiliated to and actively working. And with the Green Building Commission of Nigeria, it's a very good partnership to have. So we work directly with the Green Building Council of Nigeria, rather, to be sure that these actions translate into, these policies translate into actual action on the ground. So the action plan itself is instrumentality is that we're able to cascade it to the subnationals from the National Council on Climate Change, which is basically bringing all the ministries together that have the mandate for doing actual action on climate. But more so, furthermore, the council itself is set up to also include subnationals and private sector, and all the way down to the local governments as well. So when we have that policy in place, there's a lot of scope for cascading it down to the local governments. And
Thank you.
Also, oh yeah, go ahead. I'll just
no, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, the National Council on Climate Change, because again, as the president mentioned, there's a paucity of data. So this is something that's very critical for being able to establish baselines. The National Council on Climate Change is actually tasked with creating the national MRV framework. So that's also very useful in this setup.
That's a great news. That's a great news. I believe that's what Mr. Danjuma was telling in his presentation. I would also invite Mr. Danjuma, and I wanted to ask one of the questions for the panel to go. So from your perspective as being the head of this project, what do you think is the most crucial first step for Nigeria's action plan to become a reality at a local level?
Wow, Sangeeta, I thought I was off the hook.
You are never off the hook, sir.
Never off the hook.
Just the first step, like a very, very first step, any subnational that can take, so they can see what kind of action plan, what can be adopted as a very, very basic steps that a subnational can do.
I think the first thing to do would probably be to look at their local planning frameworks at the subnational level. That's the first thing to do. Do a diagnostic of your what exists, because some states don't even have building codes. some do. Some, their urban planning frameworks and their land use laws date to the 1960s or 1970s. And so they predate the era when we became aware of and began to think about climate change. So I think as a first step, we all need to just kind of do what we did with the scorecard. Each subnational should do a diagnostic. Okay, where are we? And then when you understand where you are now, you can now begin to say, okay, what are the first things and the easy things that I can do to begin to move? As somebody said, the steps that we take, they don't need to be big steps as long as they move us in the right direction. Sometimes we think big, we want to do the huge things, and that discourages, that can create resistance. So let them look for the easy and the simple things that they can do to begin to create momentum and move the states in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. Since we are talking about subnationals, I would like to ask Ms. Anna that what are the biggest challenges that local government faces in implementing these action plans, and how the national government can actually support it?
Thank you, Sangisa. The problems being faced at the subnational level are enormous. It will take a whole day if we want to, analyze all of them. But let's start with the limited subnational translation and integration. You have a lot of policies at the federal level, but there's no structured adaptation guidance or incentive for the state level to uptake and to implement. So that is lacking in the first place. That is a major problem. So it brings about disparities in how those policies are implemented and their relevance to local content. It's just at the federal level. So there has to be a well-structured adaptation guidance that is created to ensure this. Then another is enforcement. Policies themselves are not legally binding, but they can be enforced in an organization. But it is the regulations that are developed from those policies that can be enforced. So there has to be proper, maybe more of a way of aligning the policies, and the regulation to strengthen it, so that there will be those enforcement gaps they can have some form of legal backing. If you talk about the Building Energy Efficiency Code, for instance, at the national level, it's voluntary. It's aspirational if you want to look at it that way. But if there's no clear compliance or clarity in form of a kind of code which translates to a regulation, it might be difficult to really enforce those policies, even when they exist. Another challenge is you have policies that are fragmented and they are siloed. Even at the national, at the local level, at the national level, you have different agencies from planning, energy, building, climate. We operate in silos. So there should be a way that all the agencies in government that have something to do with climate action should have a one-stop platform where every action they are taking is being seen and their progress tracked, because you find out you are looking for some very crucial information to achieve a certain to achieve a certain task, and you find out that information is right under your nose, but because everyone is working in silos, you can't really do it. So if that can be done, there won't be unclear scopes, the jurisdiction is well defined, and you can deliver the delivery mechanisms are very, very clear along all the different agencies of government that will be able to do that. And then we have data and capacity, which Mr. President has talked about. There's no, really don't have climate data, it's not consistent. Then those that are available are more or less obsolete, and then it's not updated as often as it's supposed to be. And I believe the industry, like Mr. President also said, can actually help with that data. There are many other challenges, the policy frameworks that are not, well defined at the local level. That's another issue too. So these are the issues. But if the overall, or more like a general way to which the national government can, resolve this, a more holistic approach now, the policy alignment to strengthen it with the regulations, then you need to accelerate climate responsive finance and incentives. It's all about the money. Everything we are saying is not, yes, it's going to take willpower, but it's going to cost. That there will be need to make some financial obligations to be able to achieve this. We are talking about blended finance models, green loans, and retrofits and grants and such. Again, even mortgages, incentives like VAT and maybe rebates. And on certified projects already building that meets a sustainable development mechanism also. So this is another way. Then capacity building along the value chain this is another way that the national can really help. You can have a structure on capacity building along the value chain. Starts from even as our tertiary institutions, where the curriculum, climate literacy is very key. Because all those indices that we used to learn on how buildings work, how they operate, how they thrive within the built environment have evolved. They are still there, but each one has evolved, and sustainability is that common factor that's been introduced to that scenario. So we need to also know how we do our data, and like Mr. President said, a proof of concept, demonstration projects, the type that can be scaled, and of course, this can be done through international collaborations. And when you do it in a regional scale, at a regional scale, it's easier to scale. I mean, the regional scope now, you can scale it. Like if you do pick an area within Southwest and have a project, it's easier to be able to replicate or to scale up that project somewhere else in the Southwest. So the demonstration projects can be done in the regions. And so whatever it is, the lessons learned can be applied within those regions because of their geographic and climatic conditions. So basically, we also need to help, the national can also help us to deepen maybe multi-sectoral collaboration between the public and the private, agency collaboration and other things like that. And all of this is something that I can say very proudly that Lagos State government is at the forefront of doing this. We are really united with working on private public collaboration, which has been on for as far back as 2019, when the Building Energy Efficiency Code was introduced to Lagos State. So these are the kind of things that we can, government can support, the federal government can support with. The BEC, for just for clarity, was a collaboration between the federal government through the National Energy Support Program. So that is a way at which those support and collaboration can be enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for painting that picture. We understand what kind of challenges that the subnationals actually facing, as well as what kind of help that they are looking for from the national government. But since you touched about technical capacity building as well as the finance that driving these implementation, I believe private and international sectors also have their role to play. So I will ask Edema, how can international partners support Nigeria in their building their technical capacity as well as implementing the frameworks that are like action plan to drive the sustainability change? Hi, Edema. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I was muted.
No
I think I should
problem.
turn on my
I'll
video.
repeat the
Okay.
question. Hi, can I repeat the question or you got the one?
Please repeat the question.
All right. So, how can international partners support Nigeria in building their technical capacity as well as helping financially to implement these kind of frameworks and action plan towards sustainable buildings, especially in building sectors?
Okay, thank you, Sangeeta, and thanks for having me. So I think maybe to start, I'll just provide a little bit of context, since I'm coming from the international development space, I work for the program that's called the Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings COOL, the PEEB COOL for short. So the COOL at the end signifies the fact that the program is centered on countries within the tropics, countries in hot climates. So we're providing energy efficiency solutions to the built environment in these countries. PEEB COOL is a joint international initiative that is currently supporting to make buildings more energy efficient, resilient, sustainable, and livable in warm climates. The PEEB COOL program is implemented by GIZ and AFD, the French Agency for Development. It's funded by the Green Climate Fund. There's 11 countries in total currently that are partners jointly implementing, and Nigeria is one of them. Nigeria was the most recent addition to the PEEB COOL program. And this is a build up to all the activities over the past years that Nigeria has implemented in terms of achieving sustainability in its built environment. Ms. Anna mentioned the Building Energy Efficiency Code. So we supported to develop that code. We supported its awareness creation, the capacity development for the professionals within the building environment, within the built environment, to understand what the BEC is about, why does it exist in the first place, what are the benefits, and how it can be implemented. This is a summary that just piggybacks on where we are now and where we hope to be. So to answer the question on how international partners can actually support Nigeria to develop its capacity and frameworks, we have already started. I think I'll be talking about how we can further this support. Not to overflog some of the responses that have already been given by the president and Ms. Anna, I think it's very important to still highlight the essence of technical capacity. First of all, when you start to talk about energy efficiency, you talk about the action plans, you talk about scaling up climate finance, climate literacy, like Ms. Anna mentioned. The first question is, what is it? What are you talking about? How does it relate to me as the common man on the street? So we need to develop this capacity, and I like a step down and a step up approach. So we're not just talking to policymakers to develop their capacity for policies that work. We're supporting them to implement these policies. We're supporting the professionals within the built environment that would actually implement these policies in their daily works, the architects who would design the building, right? The quantity surveyor who would cost the materials. We're talking about the engineers, we're talking about the facility managers who are caring for the buildings after they have been commissioned. There has to be like an entire value chain capacity development, right? A south to south learning. We're not leaving out the academia because we want to strengthen universities to teach this building green building criteria, energy efficiency measures, for example, then policy frameworks. I mean, I cannot overflog how many policies, how many frameworks, how many action plans we have in Nigeria that are relating to climate change as a whole, relating to energy efficiency, renewable energy, but you do not have the ones that speak specifically to the built environment. And I think the president mentioned this in his overview of this and of the NDC scorecard, and we saw that there was this huge gap. If there's any reference to buildings, we're talking about the industrial sector. They're talking about clean cooking in homes. You know, what about the building itself, a structure by itself as a stand? It usually ends up being an afterthought, and this is something that the international the international partners can support with. We're talking about testing these policies, testing innovative approaches, bridging the gaps. And I think the president mentioned tools for monitoring and enforcement. So not just developing the tools, but also making sure that the strategic steps to ensure that you're telling me that, for example, I carry out an energy audit of a tertiary hospital and I have the data. What happens? What do I do with the data? Do I take on this data and duplicate or replicate it to say, oh, now I have an idea of the energy consumption within the healthcare facility at the tertiary level? How do I channel this data, translate this data into the actual resource that it is supposed to be? How do I store this data? How do I back up this data? So this is where the MRV would come in to have a focused approach on ensuring that we're not just bridging the gap by saying, oh, now we want to have data, now we have data, but what do we do with the data? And the expertise from the international sector comes in to play in support of this partnership. And then I think that for me, maybe perhaps I'll say the most important thing is demonstration projects. Right. The reason they're international partners, I'm using GIZ as an example, is we're coming from the context where, say, GIZ is a German Development Corporation. So apparently some of these activities would have already been implemented in Germany. Now we have to have a nexus between local and international, a blend. So it's not just saying we're coming with the DGBN, right? That's the German Green Building Code, for example, that's saying Nigeria has to implement it word for word, line for line, paper for paper, hook, line, and sinker. We just swallow it. There has to be that localization, and the localization will come through demonstration projects, you know, that would showcase these policies, these frameworks at the local level. You know, we're not just taking from, we're adapting, and we're making it our own. That's the most important thing. And I think this is something that as international partners, I would speak from personal experience, that we struggle with a lot, because you hear references like GIZ's building code, you know, and then I always have to make that correction. It is not GIZ's building code. It belongs to the Nigerian government. We just supported because we had the financing, we had the technical capacity, we had the expertise, we had the experience. We are just providing that support. So there has to be at every stage the ownership from start to finish. And I think yeah, that during that tailoring, we have co-created solutions. We have more realistic solutions. We have examples that we can showcase to the Nigerian public to say, this is the action plan being brought to life. You can go ahead and replicate it. Because the first question is always, show me what the government has done before you ask me to do mine. So this is where international partnerships can come in to provide that support. Yeah.
That is great. Thank you, Edema. It all makes sense. It all puts together what we are actually approaching in. I would like to ask another question to Olamitu, Mr. Olamitu, that as you see, most of these action plan when it comes to building sector has to be regional level, and when it comes to national, which has a lot of geographical levels and all that, how can this policy can be ensured that there's a consistent adoption across all states, and how do we link that local building actions to the Nigeria's NDC reporting? It's not only we have to report it, and so how do you see this connection?
Thank you very much, Anita. First of all, I'd really like to commend the DIMA for those really, really salient points. These are things that we'll be adopting because from where I sit, we have a coordination mandate. And so these are the sorts of actions that will definitely help to mainstream green buildings in Nigeria. Now, to your question, it's not just enough to actually have this happening at the federal level. There's a need for ownership, at the subnational level. Especially, this is where the actual building happens. That's where the land titles and the need and the gaps actually manifest. So one way to achieve that is to sort of strengthen advocacy around the entire ecosystem that will enable practitioners to be able to actually understand what this means in terms of how they're doing their planning and execution, implementation of building projects. The other thing that I would like to add is the incentive structure. So again, most building projects are actually driven by demand, and there's obviously the commercial aspect of it. So there's a need to increase the incentives financially, and this is to say that climate finance should actually be able to have a very strong impact in driving activity in that sector. So from the federal government side, what we're trying to put together some blended finance mechanisms and bonds that can speak to the capital expenditure that will actually enable practitioners to at least be able to make this make this profitable in the short term, and also find reasons to do some of these demonstration projects. As a matter of fact, we are putting measures in place to go through the NEC, the subnational government entity. That's the coordination mechanism that brings the governors together to see how we can interest them in some demonstration pilot projects. And to do that, you would also have to figure out how to bring them some kind of counterpart funding to actualize these projects. So, and also there's the question of retrofitting as well, because it's not just new build. A lot of stock already exists today. So if we use the Lagos example, where post-dated buildings and infrastructure would also need retrofits. And again, this speaks to finance and the knowledge gap, which actions on the ground will need to address alongside policy. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for that. I would like to ask the final question to Ms. Anna, as Lagos has been the great implementation of all the various building-related sustainability measures. Anna, would you like to share any examples of the local projects that the Lagos government has been taken, which actually aligns with this kind of national plan that we proposed?
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta. The project is more of a two-in-one project. It's one project, but it's two-in-one. So I'll start chronologically now. Starting from 2021, the Lagos State government collaborated with IFC as a member of the World Bank Group on green building initiative. So the idea that particular action plan focuses on or addresses the building capacity along the value chain, where the target audience there are government officials within MDAs in Lagos State. So that year, we had over 30 people being trained on green building practices, and that brought about the creation of the Lagos State Green Building Initiative, a program that was initiated to foster eco-friendly development in the state. So the training, which was done by EDGE and by IFC, brought about the training of officers on using the EDGE green building certification and standard software, the online app to learn how to certify buildings and identify those the green building standards generally and the whole 9 yards. And so that training was like a turning point for Lagos State and the officials. So there is even a bigger plan to do more of those trainings as time goes on. So the Green Building Initiative itself is at the forefront of promoting green building standards in Lagos State. We are getting to the point where every building will meet these standards. We are talking about energy performance, the water management, and the embodied carbon in the building materials. So that was very profound, and it was like a major turning point. So I said 2-in-1 because the other side of it was like before that, we had actually been working on building energy efficiency code for Lagos State, and Ms. Edima was at that time really was the one that, because it was delivered by GIZ, and she was head of implementing that project for Lagos State. But somewhere along the line, Lagos State decided to domesticate the National Building Code. And at that point, the Building Energy Efficiency Code was embedded into the final document, which is known as the Lagos State Building Code. So it's a broader plan to make Lagos a smart and sustainable city, because they need to first of all have a domesticated code from the subject document, which is the National Building Code, is to know standards. We want to ensure standard. There's a debt of reference standards for professionals. We want to ensure safety, to address the scourge of building collapse and all of that. But then that's new paradigm, that's a shift of trying to make Lagos State sustainable and smart, brought about the inclusion of the Building Energy Efficiency Code and green building standards. So the code is actually completed and currently at the stage of creating awareness internally, internal stakeholders. So that is where we are with the building code. So those two projects address building capacity along the value chain, the target being public servants within different MDAs in Lagos State. That's those within the AEC, that's the built environment. And the other one addresses having a policy and a framework that brings about bringing up sustainable building practices and the overall vision of making Lagos State, a smart and a sustainable city. And I would say that one of the things that made the project that really is success is the fact that that collaboration between the national and the international collaboration we got from IFC was very profound. That was just a major stepping stone, because it was more like a force, because we have segmented the number of people who actually certified in Nigeria as a whole was very low at that time, and the number has been increasing, and it's a very big step, because that we need to accelerate that shift, and that is a key process to which that shift can be accelerated. And then the process that it was done, we didn't just create something. We are working with the grain. That was more like the method we used. We already have the structure, the public service. We have public servants in AEC. So we just took the new ideology in sustainable building practices and try to put it within our operational procedures in Lagos State. So that is what we are doing, and the Green Building Initiative on its own aligns so much with the Lagos State development agendas. It aligns with the SDGs. When you talk about making Lagos a 21st century economy, that is one. It aligns with health and environment. So it's not something it's not a project that was done that was struggling to fit in. It fits in because we work with the grain, and that is just the success story of it. It's still work in progress. Major planning and implementation processes are going on, but for both the code and the Green Building Initiative, what we are working on is internal, the sensitization within internal stakeholders at the moment, before we now involve the external stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think Lagos is really doing their best, and I think other states should take inspiration from Lagos and get it, and to start implementing these action plans. And I'd like to close the panel session by asking a lightning question to all the panelists. Since we are all aware of the action plan that has been proposed as a part of this project, I would like to ask if you had recommend to one action for an immediate adoption in the next 6 months to any of the states to make this action plan more effective. Is that what would that action plan be? I can start with Ms. Edema. Sorry, Ms. Edema, should I repeat the question?
You hear me?
Yes.
No, I heard you. Sorry. Unmuting myself. Okay. One action. One action. I think, just piggybacking on what Ms. Anna said, let us see green building or energy efficient building standards in at least one state. Let's start with one state. Let's have a pilot city or a pilot state that we can use to demonstrate to the whole country that we have a building code that works, it's being implemented, there are projects that can demonstrate clearly how this policies or codes have been have been implemented. I think
state
doing
level
that
green building policy or energy efficiency policy.
Yes, we already have that. So let us have it adopted fully and showcased, demonstrated and being implemented, so that it makes the business case. It attracts the finance. It attracts the finance. It creates niche environments for market development, for new businesses, for developed capacity, for the skills, because these are there, but they're in silos, they're little drops. So this will bring everything together. We have a consolidated approach and a consolidated result. Yes.
Absolutely makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Olamido, Can you reflect on this question? If it's just like one recommended action for immediate adoption as far as your priority or your in terms of government perspective, what would be an immediate action for adoption for you?
Thank you. I think an immediate action for me will be to establish one platform that unifies these building codes for easy reference for all the key stakeholders across the country. I actually agree with Idima that we do have to have a demonstration project, but it can be guided by that. But both can happen in parallel. So within the next 6 months, this is certainly possible and very practical.
Yeah.
Of course, we're still working on the NDC 3.0, so we'll be mainstreaming green buildings in there, and we'll be working with the GBCN to make sure that we have a very robust policy in that framework. All right, thank you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. Ms. Anna, do you have any other action that was not implemented in Lagos that has been mentioned in the action plan that can be implemented, or something that can be immediately adopted in the next 6 months?
What I said concerning the one of the actions is still the same thing I said, but this time around, what I think we should do is we should look within. We don't need to wait until we get international collaboration or have those contacts. We can work within. In fact, it's an emergency. Let's call it a professional emergency. What is that emergency? Accelerate, climate literacy among police department professionals from the angle of the public service. It's like something that should be mandated for all public servants within AEC, because the way we design, the way we build, the way we monitor buildings, it has evolved. We can't focus on those indices that we were taught in school of practicing with. So it's a matter of an emergency, a major capacity building or acceleration or introduction of climate literacy programs. This is beyond certification. Certification is good. It gives value. I benefited from the EDGE IFC training with the World Bank that took place in 2021, and it's really opened me up to a lot of things. But beyond certification is climate literacy. The certification is just the tip of the iceberg. What is under the ice is your environmental literacy, which gives value to your certification, because you're not just following a script. You're able to think beyond what you see. You are knowledgeable about all the whole 9 yards. You are current policies, the key players, and international treaties around environmental literacy. So you are able to come up with an idea, or come up with solutions, not just following a script. So I think it's an emergency that public service acceleration of acceleration of climate literacy in public services, for me, can be done. You don't need to wait for international. It can start from just having workshops, programs like we are doing in Green Building Initiative, which we've done. We've started that already. So there's something that can be done just within a matter of weeks. And then when we have it well structured, we know that everyone is covered. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Anna. Mr. Danjuma, I think I also want you to reflect on this question, because I think the action plan, as we are talking about, is there any one of the action plan that you recommend for immediate adoption that can make a bigger impact on Nigeria?
Wow. One thing, I think I'll go back to the action plan, because one of the 8 strategic objectives was strengthening subnational action. But beyond that, okay, let me choose something else. Talking about that, I think capacity. We've talked about capacity a lot. That's one of the strategic objectives also. But speaking about capacity, I think the one thing I think we can do to begin to drive change immediately, I was just thinking about it, and it's something that has troubled me for a long time, really, where we tend to forget or overlook. I mentioned this in my presentation. We tend to overlook or forget the constructors, the tradesmen, the artisans, we have these wonderful meetings and webinars, but it's kind of like we're speaking to ourselves and we're speaking at a level that doesn't really translate. And there is actually quite a lot that can actually start to be done before we even start talking about the high level things like demonstration projects and so on. Typically, 10 to 15% of materials are wasted. That's global North statistics. We don't even know what that is in Nigeria. Simple upskilling of these laborers and masons can significantly reduce the amount of construction
How far?
and now
Body?
reduce consequently embodied carbon. So I think capacity, especially at the technical level, is one of the low-hanging fruits. I think I would suggest that we focus on. But that brings its own challenges. One reason why it's difficult to do these kind of things for tradesmen is these are daily waged people. Asking them, for example, to attend this webinar means they're losing a day's wages or they're losing from wages. So how do we address that? So we need to be creative, but because it is difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, because it needs to be done. Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining in that as well. I would like to thank all the panelists. This has been really incredible. And thank you for being very practical and having a very rich discussion around the action plan as well as the practical things that can be done. I think now we would like to hear from our audience. So please do drop in your questions in the Q&A boxes, and I will take as many as questions as the time allows, actually. So it's 2:11 now, and I will think till 2:25 I will take questions. There are some questions already in the question and answer. I will take that. Okay. Before that, I can see a hand raised from Yakubu. Mr. Yakubu, yes, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. And then I will go to the question and answer. All right, Mr. Yakubu. All right. Let me just take the other questions. All right. Mr. Mustafa Aminu, yes, please. Can unmute yourself and ask the question. All right, let me take the questions from the Q&A box as of now. Mr. Ajaye has asked, how can we be a part of this? I think it's not been directed to any of the panelists. I might as well take. It says, it depends. I think Mr. President, I actually mentioned that who must lead or who has an action. To be honest, everyone has a part of it. It depends upon your profession and what kind of action plans resonates with your profession and how you can take about it. And we will also have this QR code in the screen so that you can actually take the look at the action plan that is related to building sector, and how you can be a part of this is up to your what you can resonate into that kind of report and how you can be participatory on that. And I don't have the person's name. The next question is, please, where do members benefit and how do we get this conference material, including speech? Mr. Danjuma, these presentations will be shared with the attendees?
Yes, yes, they will be shared with the attendees.
All right.
We'll get
Thank you
Alice's
so-
presentation and share them.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's the same question that was repeated. All right. And sorry, is there any other questions? Well, is it in the chat box? I can actually read one of the comments by Mustafa Aminu. A green building action plan should be launched in the national level paper and should be launched in COP30 in Brazil. The grant being given to Nigeria, it should be in the compliance with the green building action plan. The language shall as well as reflect and respect their own wisdom, culture, and it should pave way for more sustainable from tables to local main as living in villages as well. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. And as a civil and water resource engineer, this is right on time for this. Yes, thank you. Yes, I think the World Green Building Council actually timed the project really well when the NDC has been revised. Yes, yes, Mr. Olamidu, please unmute yourself and you can talk. Mr. Olamidu?
I think it's Nsikene, no, James. Her hand is raised.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Insikemu?
Miss.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All
Please
right.
go ahead with your
So,
question.
okay, I'm James Keno. I'm a local research assistant from Nigeria, representing Delta State. I'm actually glad to be here, and I've been following up this project closely. I actually came from, I'm not an architect, neither am I an engineer, but I actually came from the background of forestry and wildlife background, like conservation background, yes. And I thought it wise to join this project as a local research assistant. And thanks to Green Building Council has actually proved to be a very, very inclusive, like an inclusive organization, yes, because I'm able to work effortlessly with them. The challenge I encountered that I want to bring forward to us from my experience as an LRA is that some states don't have codes. With respect to Mr. Danjuma's presentation, some states don't have codes, like building codes. Like Delta State, for example, when I met with the stakeholder in my state, I was meant to understand that the Delta states don't operate with codes because there is actually this challenge that they've been trying for years to resolve, the challenge between structural engineers and builders. That was how the town planner put it to me: structural engineers and builders. Them claiming to be the best. Them claiming to be the best, and it's been giving them issues in the state. So I don't really know. I don't really know if there is a way like these people could be educated. Like those are the grassroots, because I don't really know whom the builders are. But from the man's explanation, I feel that the structural engineers, they are more professional. Yes, that was what I deduced from our conversation day before yesterday. The structural engineers are the professionals in the field, and the builders just came up and they formed a body in the state, and they are not adhering to the rules. You get? So I think that in actually passing this scorecard, or in implementing a code or something that would be reliable or workable, that people really need to be educated, and the grassroots shouldn't be left out, because they are really the ones implementing this. They are the ones that are really doing the job. You get? So if we don't find a way to get to them, we would only pass bills, policies that may become laws. You get? Workable laws, but those are the grassroots. They would not implement it because they are not informed. They are not kind of schooled, and most of them are artisans, just like Mr. Danjuma said. They will just go on and do their job, not minding what the law states. You get? So that's just, I don't know if it's a contribution or a question, but that's just what I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, James. I think Mr. Danjuma can actually reflect on this.
Sangita, you keep picking on me. Okay. I think on the issue of collaboration and the challenge in getting a code passed because of competition or lack of alignment between different professions, it's not a new story, and it's not just limited to code. It's something that pervades across virtually everything we do. It's an uphill battle getting us professionals to collaborate in Nigeria. And I think I don't really have a solution that I can proffer. I would say government should come in and knock heads together and force us, but that may not work. Sometimes I think we just have to, I'm sorry, this may come off as defeatist. We may just have to come and say, look, this is my generation. I'm talking about myself, not yours, Sangeeta. We're a lost cause. Okay, let us continue doing what we're doing. What I'm trying to say is at least we have an opportunity, because 60%, those are the statistics, it could be more, of our population are under, is it 21 or under 18? Okay, so let's focus on those. Let's focus on changing, at least let's invest in changing the mindsets at that level. We can continue trying with the older guys like me that are stubborn and set in our ways. We may succeed, but I think we have a huge opportunity with this, our youth bulge. Let's not miss it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think Mrs. Esther, your hands are up. Please unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Okay. I can see Mr. Andrew Simon's hand up. You can unmute yourself, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe I'm unmuted now. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Simon.
Okay. So I have a question for Edima, the lady from GIZ. So, my question is about what the president also mentioned. In our effort to focus on the artisans, the unskilled or informal labor, informal sector of the built industry, they have a large role to play, as you understand so far. Now, in the context of Nigeria, a country where to some extent, due to the economic situation, we often emphasize on immediate construction costs, sometimes at the expense of long-term energy efficiency and sustainability. So for any green building recommendation to be successful at scale, of course, it needs to be embraced, not just by the developers or the people at the top, the policymakers, but by the artisans and tradespeople who actually implement the work on the ground. So drawing from GIZ's vast international experience in similar economic contexts, what have you found out to be the most effective strategies or incentives to empower these crucial grassroots implementers and create genuine lasting adoption of energy efficient techniques?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Simon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon, for that very interesting question. And I think maybe just before I answer your question, I was going to just lend a voice to the president's response to Nsikeno James. I literally could hear the frustration in her voice. I understand very much where she's coming from. I face that every day for the last maybe 5 years on the job. Everyone thinks that they're better than anyone else. It's standard procedure. I'm an engineer, and every time I get into a room with architects, there's always this thing. Just like the president said, it's almost never ending, and we've been able to sort of work our way around it from my experience in Lagos State in particular. It was builders versus engineers, builders versus town planners. There's a lot. And the great thing I think about the builders is they have a very strong voice. I keep saying it, if every association had, this is not to put down, any other professional body, but I'm just saying that from my experience, if other professional bodies had the strength of voice and purpose that the builders had, I think the built environment will be like 1,000 steps ahead of where it's at right now. And it's not saying that the builders are not professionals. I'll just correct that. They are professionals. Everybody just has a different role to play. The question is that sometimes you find that there are cross-cutting responsibilities, there are cross-cutting roles, there's cross-cutting expertise. It's not a sin for an engineer, for example, to be able to know how to use AutoCAD to design a building, right? That doesn't mean that I will take away the job of an architect. The main problem is that we do not come together as one from the very beginning. There has to be an integration. For us to have sustainability, there has to be an integration from the very beginning. Let's start with very simple projects. If you know that you're building a house in your village, somewhere in Delta State, for example, did you discuss with the architect and the engineer, the structural engineer, the mechanical engineer, even the facility manager? I mean, depending on the size of the project, or is it, let's first talk to the architect, he finishes his own, then the engineer comes in. That's the problem. So different people are trying to do different things, whether for financial reasons, whether it's for relevance, there's always that struggle. So what we're able to somehow manage to do in Lagos State after 3 years is get everybody in a room and have everybody's role highlighted, have that understanding, and then we're able to put everybody's role, we infused everybody's role in the building code. And at the end of the day, it was always one thing that I kept highlighting. It is not about you. It is about the state. It's about the end goal. So the moment we're able to take this mindset of, I don't know whether it's going to start from Gen Z, since the president said, I don't know if you're millennials or the Gen X, it's over and done with, but I mean, it's something to think about. So I understand where you're coming from. And of course, the grassroots is not left behind, but somebody needs to teach the grassroots, right? At the grassroots level, somebody needs to take this knowledge to the grassroots, and it has to be professionals in the space like you and me. So we have to solve our problems. We have to be able to speak with one voice. We have to have the understanding and the knowledge, and then we can transmit it to the artisans. Otherwise, it's just going to be business as usual, and we come back and have this conversation in another 2 years. So just to respond to that. And I think maybe somehow I have touched on Josiah's question where the incentives, right, at the local level, if I miss anything, please correct me, Josiah, what incentives and strategies have been put in place? Speaking from the international perspective or the international development perspective, it's not, I don't want to say it's not our job to provide these incentives. It's only our job to support the government to develop these incentives. Now, we have worked with the government to come up with incentives. For example, like we've talked about, tax rebates for developers who are implementing energy efficiency in their building designs. And then the tax officers, what do you mean tax rebates? We're trying to raise more money for the government. Please look for another incentive, make it non-financial if you have to, so then we have to start getting creative, like, okay, turnaround time for application responses. So if it takes 20 days to approve, let's say we can shorten the time to 10 days because it's an energy efficient building design, for example. In Lagos State, there's a conversation around increasing the number of floors being approved. So if you're approved for 5 floors, you get the 6th floor for free. That's also an incentive. So how do we take these incentives to the local level? It falls back to the state. The state has to look within itself and see what are the areas of need, what are the areas of support, what are the areas of interest. We have tried so many things. I'll give you an example. We worked with developers in the past to review their building designs to ensure that they were energy efficient. And then there was this matchmaking session that we had between OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, and building developers to say, GIZ is proposing or recommending that these developers we have worked with, you can support them with a rebate, with a discount, on energy efficient materials, roof insulation materials, or inverter energy efficient air conditioners. And the OEMs were more than happy to do that, right? So you have the building design, it's energy efficient, it's been approved, now you get a discount. So that makes the entry into the market easier. These are some of the incentives. I can't give you a one size fits all, unfortunately. It's on a case-by-case basis from my experience, but at the end of the day, it falls to 2 things. We cannot always think that incentives are financial. They could be financial, they could be non-financial. But if I'm speaking of financial incentives, currently, the funding that we have from whatchamacallit, the funding that we have from the GCF through the AFD, we're looking at how these funds can reach the end users, the developers, at a single-digit interest rate, for example, with long-term payment tenors. So these are little things that we're putting in the works to see where can we bridge these gaps, right? The non-incentives, non-financial incentives will be to continue to develop the capacity so that with or without GIZ or any other development agency, we are developing the local capacity to be able to implement the action plan on the go. I hope I answered your question, Josiah. Sangeeta, you're muted, so.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Edema.
that
Thank you.
happens.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think you did answer the questions. My apologies. I don't think we're going to take more questions. I can see there are a lot of questions and raising of hands, but I have dropped the mail ID of GBCN in the chat box. And if they have any other questions that you would like to answer, please mail it to info@gbcn.org.ng. I think we will get back to you with the answers. Thank you so much for attending the session. And I think there are only 3 key things that I would like to reiterate before closing the session. The first is about the action plan and the scorecard, which offers a clear path to move from the ambition to the action. And also the second thing is about collaboration. I think the collaboration is now, we can see it evidently, it's not only from the national government to local authorities, private sectors or international players, but also within the professions, all the building professionals and non-professionals to come together to make this sustainable green buildings in Nigeria really a scalable project now. Thank you so much for everyone being attending. On behalf of the Green Building Council, I would like to thank our speakers, our panelists, and all of us who joined us today. The journey towards sustainable building in Nigeria, I believe it's just has begun, and with all the efforts of all the stakeholders and the people who have taken it would be a great step moving forward. Thank you once again, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.